What's your but wait it gets worse story?
I work as a police and fire dispatcher. This in itself is stressful. In 2017, we were in the middle of a very busy evening with a major accident when I looked in our CAD, computer-aided dispatch, and saw registration information. I realized it was the car my mom had just bought my 17-year-old daughter. But wait, it gets worse. The accident was so bad, they were asking for multiple engines and rescues. I was working fire. Then I noticed the traffic units are being dispatched. This only happens with great bodily harm or death. But I couldn't leave, even though by now I had confirmed it was my family on scene. I had to get them help before I left work. The field units were barking out orders and demanding resource after resource. It took everything I had to sit there and get them what was needed. But wait, it gets worse. I was finally told I had to respond to the scene. My 68-year-old, mentally disabled adopted sister, she has the mentality of a 5-year-old child, was injured, hysterical, and they were unable to calm her down, and because my 17-year-old daughter was injured and refusing to be treated, she only wanted to leave and wait at the hospital to hear about her grandma, my mom, who the rescue units had scoop and ran with. Meaning the paramedic felt she had a very slim chance of survival and she might make it out alive if she gets to the hospital quickly. My mom broke her both legs, both arms, all the fingers in her right hand, her pelvis, hip and back. She was in a drug-induced coma. She miraculously survived but was bedridden for the rest of her life. She needed help with everything. She was still lucid, she just never walked again. Throughout the year, she contracted sepsis multiple times. She would refuse to go to the doctor or stay in a rehab facility. She would only go when she was unconscious or not lucid enough to say no. But wait, it gets worse. Back in 2016 I noticed a lump in my abdomen. I was told it was scar tissue. I went to the doctor over and over again and their diagnoses ranged from a cyst to an infection for which I was prescribed antibiotics for. It wouldn't stop growing. By 2018 it was the size of a cantaloupe. It finally ruptured at work. The bleeding was so bad I was soaked in blood from the waist down and I passed out from the loss of blood. Finally my doctor decided to remove it. They left a huge gaping hole which had to be packed. It kept getting infected, no matter how many times I would clean it and how thorough I was. I was told it was nothing to worry about. After a third massive infection I scheduled an appointment and saw a nurse practitioner because the doctor wasn't available. It was at this appointment where I was asked, "Why aren't you getting treatment for your cancer?" I was told the mass was a cyst, but when it was tested further they found lymphoma. By the time I got to an oncologist, I had stage 4 cancer and 27 tumors. I had to be hospitalized because the infection was so bad, I needed IV antibiotics. But wait, it gets worse. I had to move back in with my mom before all of this happened to pull our resources together to make ends meet. We had an agreement on rent. My mom had always been bad with money, don't get me wrong, she was a great mom. Had no drug or gambling habit, she just loved to buy junk online. While I was hospitalized, I found out our house was in foreclosure. The mortgage company would not work with us. They wanted $30,000. I had to scramble to find us housing which was handicapped accessible while being hospitalized. My mom got sepsis again. She was transported to the same hospital where I was admitted. This time she was so bad, doctors recommended hospice. In this hospital, hospice was on the same floor as cancer patients. My mom died 400 feet from me, but I was not allowed in her room and I was not allowed to say goodbye. She had contracted MRSA and I was a patient with a very large open wound and a compromised immune system. From the cancer, TLDR worked as a dispatcher. Had to dispatch for my own family who were in a bad car accident. My mom broke almost every bone in her body. I was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. We both ended up in the hospital where I learned we were losing our house and my mom died right down the hall NV-ROM my hospital room, but I wasn't allowed to say goodbye. Edit. Yes, I am in remission. Stage 4 cancer is no longer a death sentence. After R-ICE and R-CHOP, both chemotherapy, both failed. I was sent to Denver, Colorado for CAR-T. They re-engineered my immune system to recognize cancer and kill it. Although this is not new, the drugs to prevent the seizures was still experimental, which is why the drug company paid all of my travel and lodging expenses. Edit. I seriously didn't expect this to blow up and I really didn't post this for people to feel sorry for me. I appreciate it more than any of you will ever know, but I survived, I'm fine. I am unbelievably happy and I do not feel sorry for myself. I am very proud that I have survived all of this, and I had amazing support from my family, friends, coworkers, and of course my little dog. I was very, very lucky. I did have to stop working, temporarily, after chemotherapy failed twice. My oncologist managed to get me into an experimental treatment in another state. Because it was experimental, the drug company paid all of my travel and lodging expenses for myself and my family. I had to live there for 2 months. I didn't have an income, but I finally filed my taxes for the past 3 years. I don't know why I never filed them for just those 3 years. I received a little over 10K back. Then Wells Fargo randomly sent me a 6K check for a car they had repossessed in error from me when I was in my 20s. My previous job sent me a letter asking if I wanted to cash in a small retirement I had with them. I have excellent benefits with my current job, so I didn't need to save it, and so they sent me 7K. 2 organizations dedicated to helping those in public safety sent me $2,400, and my coworkers donated sick leave so I could keep my insurance. I wouldn't get any money from my job, but my benefits were paid. My sister took my daughter and I in. We ended up buying a house together. Now I am healthy, financially stable, and very happy.
I used to work as a bank teller in a really nice neighborhood. We didn't have any bulletproof glass or security because it was in a suburb. One day, I'm looking across the lobby at the glass doors leading to the parking lot when I see a man wearing a mask running towards the building. My heart immediately drops and I start saying, "Please be a joke. Please be a joke. Please be a really bad joke." It wasn't. The guy busts in, brandishes a gun and yells, "Everybody freeze." He sticks the gun in my face and tells me to give him the beep money. But wait, it gets worse. You see, this was my half day. I had just gotten in, and I didn't have any money. I tried to stutter out, "You see, I just got here. I don't have my drawer yet. I don't have," but he wasn't listening and was just yelling and agitated. There were 2 other tellers next to me, and they did have money, so I glance over thinking maybe if they give the guy money he'll be happy and get the gun out of my face. But wait, it gets worse. The other tellers were frozen, shaking, and crying. Can't say I blame them. The only reason I wasn't a mess was because I was too focused on that gun. So they were no help at all. Luckily, they had their keys to their drawer and I thought beep it. Asterisk better give this guy something. So I started pulling cash out of the other teller's drawer and stuffing it in the guy's duffel bag. It worked. He grabbed it and ran out. Everyone was shook up and crying, so the bank had a therapist come in that very afternoon. She comforted everyone and told us that statistically something like that would never happen to us again. But wait, it gets worse. 3 weeks later the same guy came running back into the bank with a gun. Even though he wore a mask, we knew it was the same guy because he yelled, "Let's do it again." This time I had a cash drawer, so things went a lot smoother. But it beeped with my head for a very long time after. They didn't catch the guy until 2 years later.
A few years ago, my mother-in-law had a heart attack on the day that she retired at her retirement/birthday dinner. She needed open heart surgery and a valve replacement. But wait, it gets worse. Then, in the summer of 2019, my mother-in-law was walking when she fell and hit her head on the metal handle of the fireplace. She went to the hospital where they found that she had a brain bleed. But wait, it gets worse. They took her off her blood thinners to address the brain bleed. Good news, it worked. But wait, it gets worse. No blood thinners means more chance of a clot and formed in her leg. At one point, we weren't sure if she'd lose it. Thankfully, a quick surgery resolved this. But wait, it gets worse. The hospital stay and medication changes aggravated her diabetes and she went into diabetic ketoacidosis. They finally leveled her sugar out. But wait, it gets worse. Remember those blood clots? Yeah, more happened. These lodged in her brain, which, needless to say, is a very bad place for blood clots. She had a few strokes. But they couldn't put her back on the blood thinner for fear of the brain bleed coming back. But wait, it gets worse. They found out that the source of the clots was that her heart valve that was replaced a few years prior was infected and damaged. In fact, she was septic. The valve was throwing clots throughout her body and it was only a matter of time before another clot hit in her brain or elsewhere. She needed to go into open heart surgery, but she was too weak from everything else. They scheduled the surgery date and worked to get her strong enough. Finally, the day before her surgery arrived. But wait, it gets worse. The day before her surgery, they discovered that her gallbladder was infected as well. If they did the valve transplant, the gallbladder would just reinfect it and it would need to be replaced again. So the gallbladder needed to come out first. Open heart surgery day turned into gallbladder removal day. Then we tried to get her strong enough for the open heart surgery. Finally, she had her open heart surgery, got the valve replaced and got to leave the hospital. But wait, there's more. By this point, she had spent about 50 days lying in a hospital bed, unable to sleep, due to strange rooms and nurses waking her up to take readings, and mentally injured from the strokes as well as everything else. She couldn't just go home. So she had to go into a rehabilitation hospital for about 2 weeks to learn how to walk, get into a car, climb stairs, etc. By the time she left this hospital and came home, over 60 days had passed since her initial fall. Oh, and just to add a bit more worse, I was driving my kids back from visiting their grandmother, grandfather, and mother, since my wife all but lived with her mother that summer, in the rehab hospital. We were stopped at a red light when a medical transport van was unsure whether red lights are optional. By the time he decided to stop, it was too late and he slammed into the rear of my car. Everyone was fine, but the bumper was damaged and I had to juggle both my boys, 16 and 11 at the time, while managing the post-crash situation. The manager of the van driver promised to pay for everything if we didn't involve the police. I declined and insisted on getting a police statement. Otherwise, what assurance would I have that they would suddenly claim it was my fault despite the fact that I was stopped at a red light with cars in front and to the sides of me at the time? Just more stress onto an already stressful and hectic year. As a postscript, I was looking forward to a normal year following that crazy summer. While at Rosh Hashanah services, a new guy was acting odd all day. Now, there's a tradition that however Rosh Hashanah goes, your year will go. For example, if you take a long nap, you'll have a lazy year. So this guy was acting off but nothing majorly bell ringing. Until things got worse. Suddenly, my rabbi yells get out like he's Gandalf telling someone that they won't be passing. I look to see why and new guy is running down the far aisle in a t-shirt yelling Happy New Year, his yarmulke flying off. By the time he reached the bima, stage in front where the rabbi conducts the service, I saw that he had only a t-shirt on. No underpants or anything. My poor eyes saw way too much. Can't unsee. The ushers tried to get him, but they're older gentlemen and couldn't keep up with him. He tried to get on the bima, but my rabbi switched from Gandalf mode to professional wrestler mode, clotheslining the guy down the stairs. He was dragged off for the police to take away. So, remember that, how Rosh Hashanah goes, so your year will go? I joked afterwards that I hoped this didn't mean that the next year would be crazy. That next year. 2020. Curse you, temple streaking guy. As a postscript, my mother-in-law is fine, all things considered. She had some mental challenges that persist to this day due to the strokes, but she's getting better. Thankfully, insurance also covered most of her charges because the amount to pay if you didn't have insurance was over $1 million.
I was born with a birth defect affecting both of my legs. But wait, it gets worse. Both of my legs were amputated from the knees down by the time I was 5 years old. But wait, it gets worse. This happened in my family 4 times. My mother, me, my sister, my daughter. But wait, it gets worse. I'm the only one left. Everyone else died.
I took my husband to the doctor because we thought he had a stroke. But wait, it gets worse. The say yep stroke. Order a MRI, MRI shows brain tumors. But wait, it gets worse. Husband has another seizure, guess what, emergency craniotomy to remove biggest tumor, BAM reveals several more tumors. But wait, it gets worse. Brain tumors reveal stage 4 metastatic lung cancer diagnosis, can't cure, can only hope, call is doable. Terminal they say. Quality of life they say. He is now back in the hospital because inpatient is better than our patient right now.
The Jolly Rancher.
My friend's brother was killed by a drunk driver. After finding out, his grandfather died of a heart attack. But wait, it gets worse. On the way to the grandfather's funeral, his sister lay her head on her mom's shoulder and never woke up again. Another heart attack.
The history of Russia.
The economy of Argentina.
My boyfriend, first love, cheated on me. Asterisk, but wait, it gets worse. Asterisk, with my best friend.
May your day be filled with joy and happiness. And please remember to like, share, and subscribe for more quality content every day.